Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the 6th round of the Competier Open Series on Silverstone. We are still waiting for 1 or 2 drivers more to connect, hopefully 2. And then we'll get going into qualifying. If I see correctly, this is still practice, right?
Jetzt. Du kannst, aber
Echt jetzt? Doch, wir können.
ja.
Okay, now we should actually be in quali. Sorry about that. Okay, looks good. We'll only be doing one race today, only the first one. Unfortunately, most of the drivers who have been signing up for the past few races haven't been able to make it today. So the second race would have been too empty. Therefore, we only do this one today. And then hoping for a couple more signups for next week. Andres being the first driver who went out of the pits into qualifying, so the first to start his first fast lap, so let's go on board with him. Try to get the optimal exit here out of the chicane. The time you get here right now doesn't really matter, just the exit speed matters. It's the first corner. You can cut a little bit over the inside there, but it didn't look bad. Fixes braking point. Now, depending on how you took that corner, you can approach this corner all the way from the outside or a bit from the middle. Andres goes for the for prioritizing this second corner by approaching it all the way from the outside, and therefore having to go a bit slower through the previous one. You'll see the drivers pick some different lines there, which is a good turn into interesting moves in the first lap of the race. As usual, we'll look at the grip, but I assume something just above 97. Yes, 97.3 seems to be what we normally get. at the beginning of the qualifying session, so doesn't sound that bad. Does it? 97.3% of grip basically available, but you have to remember that if you had 0% grip, you would not be able to get out of the pits because you have no friction. Basically, that's how Assetto Corsa. What those grip percentages mean. So being 3% off the optimal is noticeable. You have noticeable less grip. It's not terrible, but it's noticeable. Like he was a bit late there, just can't reach the apex, as then also relatively late back on the throttle. However, so far, first and second sector look quite good. Up until this point, both purple first and second sector. So he comes over the line for a 2:19.5. And Charlotte, who was slower in both the first and the second sector, but matches him in the third one, barely 2:19. Both of them, I think, are still going to be able to improve that. Still not entering the chicane. And I think he made a major mistake on this lap. Oh no, I think that the time up there might just be wrong. Oh no, he did make a mistake, but he made it in the last sector, so first and second sector looked fine. Let's go back to Andres. 37.4 first sector, which again is purple and an improvement on his previous laps first sector. Charlotte only with a 37.8 first sector, which is not a personal best. I'll try to hit the insides of these corners, the apexes nicely, one after another. He's very far on the left here, so he has to approach this bend all the way from the inside. And now struggling to get on the throttle. He's waiting a little bit, you could hear it in the engine note, and even then he slightly ran over the grass. Still 4/10 of an improvement, so he still has some time to gain there, I think. That looked very clean, I would say. Hits the inside curve of the chicane nicely, just about doesn't hit the sausage. It's going to be a significant improvement most likely, and he's into the 2:18s already. That's good. Charlotte responding, maybe not this lap, considering the bad first sector. It's actually still a slight improvement, so also significantly more time to gain for her. Charlotte choosing a completely different line to what Andres did. Andres was very far on the right there between those two corners, compromising the first one for the second. Charlotte basically did the opposite. Maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle there. This looked very tidy, maybe a bit careful. It's very far off the apex there. You can let the car breathe there a little bit as you hit an early apex and then another late apex with the car lifting off the curb a little bit in between, but that was maybe a bit much. 37.5 first sector is a slight improvement for Charlotte, and we've also been watching the correct car here, considering that both Andres and Zillert haven't matched their personal best first sectors. Big correction there. In back hits, I think. And then significantly off in the second sector, I think lost a lot of time there in the S's. So none of them improving on this particular lap. Frank about to come over the line, wants to set a time for himself. There was another improvement from Charlotte, wasn't it? I wasn't paying attention again. And this is a session best first sector, purple. Again, it feels like she's just a bit careful there, not committing quite as hard as Andres. You're also waiting for rotation. It did look tidy though. I think in the previous lap she was, the line was a bit weird, so it might still be an improvement. And also sometimes smooth just is fast. It should still be committed. There, for example, it was quite committed, I would say. And maybe got a bit more rotation than she thought she would, actually. Someone going off there in front of her, I think. That's Frank, but he reset it, so he's not going to be in anyone's way. Andres only slightly slower first sector than what Charlotte is just doing, and then both of them purple second sector, 62.2. So they are neck and neck here in these laps. After this they both get 2 more, I think, but don't want to make yourself too dependent on the last gasp attempt. As Andres goes into the pits, so he either made a mistake or he's out of fuel. If she didn't mess up the last sector here, there's a pretty good chance Charlotte will be going provisional pole. She comes over the line. It's a 18.6, quite good lap. 2/10 ahead of Andres. We just saw that he can do basically the same, like almost exactly the same, that they've been doing throughout the first and second sector there. And both of them, if they go to the pits now and then go back out, they have to go back out now, otherwise they don't actually get an attempt in. If they go back out now, then they will have 1 more lap. So that always improving, has been spending a lot of time on the practice server, I saw that. You notice it, I already mentioned that at the end of the last race, if I'm not mistaken. Feels like he's getting better with every event he participates in, although today his goal is probably going to be a safe 3rd place, as catching on to either Charlotte or Andres is going to be quite difficult, unless something happens ahead. Vamos Victor also joined the server now. That was the last driver we've been missing so far. A bit late, I think, to be able to still set a quali lap. Oh no, he is on track. He doesn't... He's not showing up on the on the track map, is he? Okay, then we'll have to keep that in mind so we don't miss him. Might be because he joined the session late, but neither Charlotte nor Andres are leaving the pits again, so this is most likely Charlotte on pole unless Vamos turns out to be really, really fast now and just nails it right off the bat. Very aggressive on the steering wheel, isn't he? A big difference to what we've been seeing from both Andres and Charlotte. Really wrestles the car around the corners. The first sector gonna be comparable, 38.4. So his goal is going to be to beat Zillard basically, but he misses this corner unfortunately. Slides out of the next one. .4. You can compare it in the top left of your screen. Zillard did a 38.2 earlier, but that wasn't actually his personal best. Frank with a 38.5. So far, Vamos roughly on par with Frank. Zillard is also still going, but he's not on a personal lap. We'll continue to look at this one. Late on the throttle there. How does it look over the timing for the second sector? It's a 64.1, which is again a bit faster than Frank, so he's very likely to slot into fourth here. Biggest braking point for the chicane. Hits the sausage a little bit. Unsettles the car pretty significantly again. Seems to be having slight issues with the car sliding out on him as he crosses the line. Is he going to be in front of Frank? And he is. He's in front of Frank by 0.3. I think he's gonna be happy with that, considering that he only had one attempt and the next opponent is 2.7 seconds ahead of him. That would have been difficult to crack. So it's Charlotte on pole, good lap. Both Charlotte and Andres had finished their runs basically just on the time when they would have to get going again for their next run. Maybe didn't realize it soon enough. Otherwise they would have gotten one more attempt. But Charlotte 0.2 ahead of Andres, then Zillard, then Vamos, and then Frank. Could be neck and neck between the first two. I feel like Andres hasn't gotten a great lap together. I think he can go a little bit faster. So we'll see how in what order they will finish the first lap. And I think then everything's possible for 1 and 2. Let's see if Vamos is going to improve throughout the race, if he'll be able to get anywhere close to Zillard. Otherwise Zillard in position for a strong third place. And in case anything happens ahead, he'll try to do his best to be right there. Revving their engines. Honking, 5-6 lights. And they're off. See, Andres is getting close to Charlotte, but he's not getting close enough to try a move into here. Or he actually is going for it, goes for a move, goes for significantly more entry speed, and makes the corner easily. So great move there, Charlotte maybe not expecting it. Andres going into P1. Charlotte on 2, Zillert on 3. Vamos a bit hot into the next corner, and Frank manages to be even hotter as Charlotte goes back to the inside. And this could be her closing down on the position. A lot of turning to do there as she was approaching that slight bend that luckily doesn't actually require her to slow down all the way from the inside. Andres close behind, but lost the position again. Great racing. Oh, and Andres hits Charlotte. Is Charlotte going to be out? Charlotte spins out. That's so unfortunate. That is most likely going to be a penalty as Silla tries to go for the move. And it looks like, yeah, he actually made it stick. Super unfortunate for Charlotte, but everything's possible now for Zillard. I'd be interested in looking back at that, but I don't want to interrupt the action here right now. All of them still very close together, but we'll look at the incident again later. It did look pretty obvious though, with Andres most likely expecting a penalty. A lot of damage done to Charlotte's race, so the penalty is not going to be a small one either. He'll have to overtake Zillard quickly and make up some ground if he wants to stay somewhere in the front for the end results. Andres falling back. I think Andres is going to fall back behind Charlotte here. That's the fair thing to do. That also means that he is likely not going to receive a penalty, provided that he actually loses time overall compared to Charlotte. And Andres is all the way in the back now. So this is effectively turning this into a last to first challenge for our two fastest drivers. Good for the action, still quite unfortunate for Charlotte. But now it's in her hands. She has all the opportunities to repair her race. Vamos still somewhat able to keep it close to Zillard, but we know with how cleanly Zillard has been driving and how much he's been practicing, I do think there's going to be a consistency advantage here on Zillard's side unless Vamos manages to improve throughout the race, because he's had less practice. And Andres now very close to Charlotte. With the toe, he might try to do something there into the next corner. Because when you brake, you already start to turn in so early into this. It is usually a dangerous attempt, but he makes it through somewhat safely. As again, there's contact. Charlotte's nose was still in there. Andres hadn't quite cleared her at that point, and now Charlotte is coming back, but is on the throttle a bit later. So I assume that Andres will have this. Zillard's still in front in P1, now with a significantly bigger gap in front of Vamos. And Charlotte goes back to the inside. It looked as if it was a done deal there already, but Andres leaves the door open, but now again with a better exit speed. As Andres stays ahead for the S's. And we know that if Charlotte gets the chance, she's going to try to get a better exit out of here now and try it again at the end of the next straight. The exit looked decent. Was Andres slightly on the grass there? I think he just got away with it, so his exit is also going to be fine. Andres trying to break the toe. They are definitely costing each other time. Can they really afford that? They still have 3 cars to clear. 25 minutes is a long time. Fang stays out of the way. He really doesn't want to ruin anyone's race here. I assume he still hasn't installed Heli Corsa, considering that I haven't helped him with that yet. So I think that's why he's being overly careful. He doesn't want to hit anyone because he doesn't see anything. So that's Andres and Charlotte back 1 position ahead. And Zillard with a 2:22.6 is doing his best to try to escape. Charlotte kind of pointing it into there, not quite doing it, but therefore late on the throttle, so she isn't going to get a significant tow here anymore now. 0.6 of a gap, that's kind of in the edge case where you just about get a little bit, but it's not significant anymore. Is Andres going to be able to make a move onto Vamos here? This is going to be a tricky one. His exit speed not significantly better. Vamos moving over. Not making it easy for him. He is defending that even though they still have 24 minutes left, but Andres preparing him very, very nicely. That was well done. Vamos is actually still kind of there. We'll watch it from Charlotte's perspective. No, he pulls back. So now it's Charlotte's turn. Oh, they are both very slow there. Charlotte has to make sure that Vamos doesn't hit him there. And Szilard in front actually makes a significant mistake. Vamos almost hitting Szilard. And it's Andres and Charlotte back in P1 and P2. Did they make contact there? I think all of them are far enough away from each other so we can look at it in peace. Let's look at what Szilard has been doing. Goes significantly wide there, goes all over the inside, and I assume he has a penalty now. So keep him in mind. You see him approaching there. As Vamos gets closer and closer and closer, was probably just watching Andres and then has to evade, and he manages to evade it quite well. Good reaction, even though he definitely wasn't paying attention to that before. As he was fighting with Andres. So very unfortunate for Szilard. Unnecessary and very, very costly mistake. Dropping from P1 to, I think, momentarily P5, but made it back up to P4 already in front of Frank. So we're almost where we left off again, except that Andres obviously hit Charlotte initially when he was still behind, and now because of all the other everything else going on with them being in the back, Andres is got ahead of Charlotte again. Significantly more eventful race so far than you would expect from having 5 cars on the grid. None of them have been able to do sub 220s yet. Andres 223 is purple, even though that's not even a good lap, but none of them have had clear driving laps so far. Maybe Szilard kind of missed the opportunity there in the beginning to just try to check out. Andres significantly wide here. Charlotte is struggling a little bit on the exit though. Again Andres wide, Charlotte with the better line. But not able to get close enough to try to prepare a move. And there we go, low 219s, even though we saw small mistakes here and there, both of them going slightly wide in T1. It's so easy to go wide with these cars. They just don't react that well on high speed. Absolutely no aero on them. This is racing extremely close to the series cars. Basically interior ripped out, roll cage in, slicks on, and that's basically about it. 98.5% grip level, so we'll probably optimize somewhere during the end because of how few cars there are here. Takes very long to rubber in the track. But Andres just able to eke out the odd 10th here and there. Frank with a significant mistake, falling off the back of Zillard. So far he was able to keep close to that. Again, Andres going slightly deep and then Charlotte also going slightly deep. Still 2:19.1 for Andres and only 2:19.5 for Charlotte. Again, a corner that Charlotte seems to hit a bit better, even though she seems to be on the throttle later than Andros, but she actually did gain time there, if I'm not mistaken. Like it's Beckett's and Chapel, just the best set of corners to try to gain some time. If you really nail it through there, you can make up a lot of ground. But in this case, Andros just a bit fast again. I think Zillard has kind of found his groove now, very close to Vamos. So we'll take a peek at that. He goes slightly wide, more than slightly. And is going to lose track of him again as he almost spins out, goes over the grass, hopefully doesn't hit the wall, he hits it slightly. I think he's having some sort of issue as he doesn't get going again. And Frank goes past. Would be very unfortunate if he has technical issues now. It's Zillard now 10 seconds away from Frank. I think there's something wrong there. Goes over line for 2:36.2. a bit deep into this one, so her exit isn't going to be ideal. Another chance for Andres to get 2 or 3 tenths. Also, Frank currently significantly faster than Vamos. He can actually go for 3rd if he keeps it together. With Zillard now significantly behind. Because of whatever issue he was having. But Zillard is out actually, isn't he? I wasn't watching that, apologies. So whatever issue Zillard was having was enough for him to decide to drop out. That's a DNF. We'll look at the times of 3rd and 4th place over the line. It's only a 25.6 for Vamos. So Frank, even though he also wasn't close to his personal best lap, he is significantly faster right now. There's definitely an opportunity for him to try to snatch 3rd, which would be an amazing result for him. Tiny bit over the grass. But not slow. Yeah, and I think this is Andres checking out. (18.8) Charlotte with a comparatively bad 220. And now it feels as if Frank doesn't dare to quite make up the last second to Vamos because he's scared of an actual on-track battle. We've been talking positively about how careful he is when faster cars overtake him, but now he has to do it himself. And Andres doing a very, very good job. So let's look at this one. Just as we were tuning in, Vamos returning from a little stroll on the outside of the corner. Ah, Frank going wide here, going over the grass. Almost again able to make up some time. The closer Frank gets to Vamos, the more difficult it is for him. It seems like it. We should have some time right now. Let's go into the replay and try to find the collision. That's just where it was. So this was, if you don't remember, if you hadn't tuned in at that point, this was Charlotte getting hit by Andres in what I think is the first lap. And I think that's a pretty obvious one. Charlotte could have been on the throttle here already, you gotta say, but that doesn't warrant Andres just going into her back. A bit goofy, Andres clearly expecting her to already be on the throttle there. But still very fair of him to let himself fall all the way to the back of the position back. I think Frank is close enough to do so. Oh, just as we tune in again, they almost hit each other. Lot of steering lock. He tries to get that car around the corner. And now he is fast enough to draw on some of the toe, but he lifts there a little bit. Bad approaching angle for that bend. You usually don't lift there. So this effectively ruins his overtake opportunity on this very straight. Charlotte's last lap, a 2:19.0, was her personal best, but unfortunately Andres is gone now as she tries to go on the throttle too early. Realizes though before she hits the grass. Both in the 18s now. That's still a significant difference between the two. Still happy that, I mean, not happy, you know what I mean, but at least with Andres hitting Charlotte in the beginning, we got to see them having to make the places back again. At the end of the Asses, that weird situation with all of them almost bumping into each other. But now as the order of the 4 still remaining cars with Zillert out of the race has almost settled, Frank's still trying to get close enough to Vamos to make a move, but clearly maybe just a bit scared. Scared of getting a penalty, scared of how Vamos is driving. As we saw earlier on the onboard, quite an aggressive driver, I would say. A lot of steering wheel movements can make it a bit hard for the person in the rear to anticipate what exactly they're doing, where they're going. Again, Charlotte a bit wide here on the throttle too early, but this time she just sticks it, goes over the grass. No regrets. And as Andres is about to come over the line with 4:15 remaining, it means we have 2 laps to go. So Frank has to get a move on now if he wants to do, if he wants the podium. Point 8, 0.9 of a diff, so we'll take a quick look at that again. Kind of shows himself here, but was still way too far away. And hits the sausage, and it unfortunately loses that advantage again. Looks as if whenever he gets close, he just gets irritated with there being a car in front of him. Clearly not used to being the one who has to make an overtake. But now he found his match in Vamos, and this is where he gets the opportunity to show it that he can do it. Almost going very far to the outside, almost as if to open up the corner for Frank, but obviously just trying to get an optimal entry into the next corner. Frank could have tried it there, to be honest. Could have. This could be it. Vamos is way too far on the outside, but it looks as if Frank just doesn't go on the throttle. I think he has him anyway. Yes, he does. Finally, with a significant mistake from Vamos, and Frank immediately does a mistake himself again. It's possible that he got a penalty there. If he does, then he'll have to see now how he manages to get rid of it without letting Vamos back by, and he just lets him back by. He was lifting there, I think. That was his chance. He should have taken that. He should have taken that. So this is, I think this is Vamos' podium to keep. I think Frank is still lifting. It looked as if he lifted because of the penalty and then didn't lift for long enough, and now he's 6 seconds back, 7 seconds back. Anders and Charlotte are separated by 5.4, so unfortunately no more action there. So the battles we saw were pretty nice. Unfortunate about that one big hit, but ended up yielding some more action. So this is the second half of both Andres and Charlotte's last laps, and Vamos and Frank now also on their last laps. So as he comes out of the final corner, very solid race. Can't say he hasn't made any mistakes, but he made up for it again, going from all the way off the back of the field back to P1. Charlotte coming back home in second. Charlotte after a very strong pole position, some nice fights in the first lap. unfortunately also thrown back to the back of the grid because of that collision, and then Andros was able to make a move on her, as well as the rest of the field. So now with Vamos and Frank significantly behind, but they are going to finish in that order. There's Frank pretty far behind again after his attempt to take that penalty that he got, cutting through Beckett's, I think. So Vamos over the line for P3, Frank over the line for P4, and then unfortunately Zillert, DNF in P5. Good. That was it for today. As I said, just one race today. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find enough people, enough drivers who had time today. Hoping for a bigger field and 2 races again next week. See you then. Goodbye.